What's going on, Bucs fans? Back at it here at the Pirate Parlay podcast. A little bit of a different day, but we're back here on the Sick Podcast Network with the Pirate Parlay podcast. As always, I'm your host, JC Allen. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the game that was, obviously, the Buccaneers' opening win in the preseason against the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll talk a little bit about joint practices, what we've heard, who stood out. Is there cause for concern at all? We'll talk about that as well. And we'll also showcase the Jacksonville Jaguars matchup on Saturday. We're going to be going in depth on some of the rookies and how they performed as well, because that's a big point of emphasis. The Buccaneers got a lot of contributions from their rookie class last year. Can they repeat it this year? So far, a lot of good things we saw. I'll be joined with a special guest, Mr. Josh Queipo of Pewter Report, your resident cap guru. He's going to be joining me here, so we'll be right back, and we'll get into all of that stuff right after the break.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Pirate Parlay.
Battle intercepted, picked off in the end zone. Bucs are going to beat the Chiefs. We're the champions of the world.
The sickest Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. It's going to be sick.
Welcome back on the other side. As always, I'm JC Allen, your host here at Pirate Parlay on the Sick Podcast Network. We're going to waste no time. Your resident cap guru, your resident film breakdown aficionado, writes amazing pieces, a great contributor, plucked from the fans, from the stands, into an amazing role. If you're not following his work, definitely check it out. He's breaking down film. He's breaking down cap ramifications. He's doing it all and giving some really awesome insight as well. As a non-biased Bucs fan, he's a little bit on the pessimistic side. He might call it optimism, but glass half empty is what I call him. Josh Queipo from Pewter Report. How are we doing, my friend?
Hey, JC, I'm doing well. How about you? I would say realism, not optimism, not pessimism. I try my hardest to be as unbiased as possible. And you'll see in a lot of my tweets, I talk about the 50th percentile outcome, right? Yes. So trying to balance best case scenario, worst case scenario, and kind of what lies in between to give an unbiased, balanced approach.
Unbiased, biased, whatever. We know that you love the Bucs and you're always rooting for them in your heart, but you do a great job of separating that fandom. And it's one of the things I think a lot of Bucs fans appreciate, even though they might not agree with you and they might call out your takes a little bit here and there, but it's because you've kind of detached yourself from that fandom when you're in writer cap film analyst mode, we'll call that. But first of all, how the heck are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing really well. I appreciate you asking. I had a lot of time to dive even further into the football world over the last couple of months, and it's been a real treat, an unexpected surprise, and something I've really gotten to enjoy doing.
Yeah, I mean, you're one of the best right up there in the Tampa area, breaking down film, putting it out in digestible ways most of the time. Some of the time I have to go back and read your paragraphs. I'm like, what does that mean? And then I pull out the gold Google. I'm like, oh, okay. That's what that means. But between you and our buddy Doc Pless over at Real Bucs Talk, I think you two do an amazing job at servicing the Bucs fans with breakdowns on film and in ways that people can digest it. So I want to give you your flowers and commend you there because you do a great job.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
But speaking of that tape breakdown, we'll start right at the beginning. Last week's game against Cincinnati Bengals, Buccaneers came away with a late win, 17-14 with a Ramon Jefferson touchdown to kind of seal the deal. I think it's one of their first wins in preseason for a while now. I think they've been kind of on a downward trend, but you look at the game, it had some highs, it had some lows. I want to ask you first, though, what are some of the things that stood out to you most about that game against the Bengals last Saturday?
Yeah, if I'm the Bucs leadership, I'm coming out of the Cincinnati game feeling really, really good about some of the questions that they needed to answer this offseason, right? So if you think about, what were some of the biggest questions? Can they get more out of the wide receiver 3 position? Trey Palmer looked really good, and I want to say like 7 snaps. Jalen McMillan looked very good, and I want to say 11 snaps. I think that the floor of that position is definitely raised between the two of them. And then McMillan being a rookie, right? I want to say a fourth round pick, or he was third round pick. That's right. Knowing that, that those early returns on that look really promising, that he's going to be able to kind of hit the ground running from day one and be a contributor to the offense. One of the biggest question marks in heading into this offseason was the interior offensive line, right? Mm-hmm. Last year, there were some struggles from Cody Mauch, Robert Hainsey, and the combination of Aaron Stinney and Matt Filer. Right. So, and the Bucs made a big overhaul to that kind of that little subunit, right? Goner, Stinney, and Filer, and they actively worked on upgrading on Hainsey by investing a first-round draft pick in Graham Barton. Well, Graham Barton looked absolutely fantastic. Like, he's ready for day one. He is he's going to be a starter in this league for a long time, as long as health stays on his side. Right. So that was one that looked good. Ben Bredesen looked fine in a few reps. And then even the depth, which took a hit with Sua Opeta's injury prior to that game, and he's going to be out for the season. Even rookie 6th rounder Elijah Klein, looked really solid in, I think he tied for the most snaps on the offense for the game. Right. So the interior offensive line's looking better. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say Mauch looks like he's taken a step forward in year 2. So that looked good. Then turning to the defense, another rookie, Tyke Smith, had a couple of bad reps. He got burned on an inside man rep for, I want to say, 23 yards. He had the defensive pass interference, but I'll go to that clip. We can talk about it a little bit later, but there was so much more to like about that particular play than there was to not like about it. Right. Smith looked good, right? Chris Braswell had a couple of flashes. So, and the edge room, I think that was the other big question mark headed into this offseason. And with Yaya Diaby being out with a sprained ankle, it's, I think, even more of a highlighted area of the team. I think that they'll be able to get by because Todd Bowles has shown that he doesn't need premier edge rushers to have a solid defense. Right. I think he needs a premier edge rusher to have an elite defense, but who doesn't? Right. But Braswell had a couple of good reps there that are encouraging for his development. And I know you said we'll talk a little bit about the joint practices with the Jaguars. Todd Bowles was very complimentary of Chris Braswell's kind of development over the joint practices, saying he seems to have leveled up. And then the last was the secondary. And that is actually, and I just recently did an article on Pewter Report about it. I think the depth in the secondary is one of the most fascinating parts of the team, especially looking at that Bengals game. So again, if I'm Bucs leadership coming out of that game, it's not about winning. It's not about how many points they put up with backups. It's about the guys that you're going to need to count on either in key positions or in depth places. Do you feel good about their development? And I think, if you were to ask Jason Light or Todd Bowles, they're going to tell you, yeah, we feel really, really good about their development.
Now, let's go back. You started with the wide receiver room. Trey Palmer, Jalen McMillan. There were some things that, again, when you're watching at home, you're kind of just watching where the ball goes. When you're looking at the tape and watching that, you're seeing different things there. So besides, the stats that they put up, I think, Palmer had, one for 19 yards or something like 21 yards. Yep. And Jim McMillan had 2 for, I think, 24. One of those was like one of those was like 18 or 19 yards. Yep. The other one was 5 or 6. But besides that, when you watch the tape back, what else did you see from them that maybe when they weren't the targeted receivers, that made you kind of, and would make the Bucs brass feel like, okay, yeah, we like what we have here, not just the plays that they made, but the small things that maybe were caught off camera.
Yeah, I think the big one there is Jalen McMillan. There were 3 reps that were very encouraging. The 2 catches, obviously. The first catch, he just created some easy separation on, I want to say it was a 15-yard dig route. With a really good, release at the top of his route. They call it the stem, right? The stem of his route, where he was able to go from a vertical to a horizontal plane and kind of leave his coverage man behind. He made a tough catch, right? On his second catch, which was just a little 5-yard kind of slant hitch where he slipped and had a DB coming over his back. And one of the things that I was concerned about with McMillan, in terms of like worries when he was coming out of college, is can he make those difficult over the middle contested catches? That was a difficult, kind of contested catch. He used his hands. He was able to hold on to the ball. But to your point there, in terms of the route where he wasn't targeted, it was on a throw that Kyle Trask made to Devin Culp over the middle. It was a cover one rep where McMillan was running a crossing route from the other side of the field. And it showed some nuance and his ability to manipulate the deep safety to prevent him from trying to be over the top coverage on him, where he starts this, deep kind of crossing pattern, and then halfway through, he angles it up almost as if he's running up the seam on a straight vertical. And it caused the deep safety, the cover one safety, to flip his hips inside to McMillan. And then McMillan was able to continue to run the cross to the other side of the field, effectively taking the safety away from him because he was literally positioned the opposite direction. So some nuance to his route running. He ended up open on that play. Trask just didn't get to him in the progression, decided to throw to Culp. But it's, again, progress showing he understands coverages. He understands how to manipulate safeties to reduce the amount of guys who are covering him and ultimately get open. So really promising first game for Jalen McMillan.
Yeah, and that's what we've heard, right? We've heard that from Chris Godwin. We've heard that from Mike Evans. We heard that from guys on the defensive side, Tavier Thomas and Antoine Winfield Jr. They've all raved about this guy is, and it's like really encouraging for both of the Bucs third round picks, right? Because you have a guy like Jalen McMillan who has gotten rave reviews from coaches and teammates and calling him he's out there savvy veteran. He kind of knows, to your example of what you just, broke down, he knows some of the nuances and stuff that maybe a rookie might not know. Maybe it's a learning curve for them as they get into the NFL. Certainly not going to do it against NFL competition. And here we have a guy like Jalen McMillan who's already shined, had a couple drops this during training camp, joint practices, uncharacteristically. That's such a hard word for me all the time. But, you look at a guy like him and encouraging, right, to see that he's at a level where sometimes rookies aren't there until midway through the season, where they're kind of picking all that stuff up. And then on the flip side, your guy, Tyke Smith, everything we've heard from everybody is this guy is like a veteran. He reminds me of Kalijah Cansey coming in last year. You've got some draft picks who come in, and it takes a while for them to not only get the system and adapt to NFL lifestyle, but Tyke Smith is not that guy. And he credits playing at Georgia that they had a lot of calls on there. I mean, I interviewed Tavier Thomas, and I was like, "So how's it picking up Dole's defense?" He's like, "Well, it's crazy." He's like, "I was at Cleveland. We had like 10 calls, Houston, 8 to 10 calls. Here, I'm like 58 calls. What?" And Bulls defense will put that kind of pressure on guys because it's all about, and that's one of the things I've learned too. And you've helped me kind of learn that is when you're watching the game and you see a mistake happen, your eyes usually go to the closest person to that mistake. And in Bulls defense, specifically Bulls defense, more so than some others, that's not always the case because sometimes they're doing their assignment, and it's somebody else who's messed up their assignment. But because they're closer to the ball, you're looking at them like, well, he let up another big gain, or he, this or that. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with how many calls Bulls have because he is, switching things up consistently. If anyone watched Bulls defense, you have no idea where people are lining up on any given play, maybe except for the outside cornerbacks because he's so diverse with it. And for Tyke to come in and have that ability to understand Bulls defense at such a high level where he's getting praise from not just his fellow defensive backs, but Bulls himself, but also the wide receivers, and complimenting his ability to kind of just know what he's supposed to do. And again, calling him like a savvy veteran, like he's been in the business. I mean, he's teaching Tavier Thomas safeties. Thomas is a 6-year veteran. So it's like, it's really encouraging that both of those third round picks. I want to get back to Tyke and what you kind of mentioned before. There are some things that you liked from him. I thought he was really sound in most of his assignments. He came up great in run support. You can see that he's a strong tackler. I think they sent him on a blitz one time. Not mistaken. Could have been another guy though. and got decent pressure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that play on the pass interference, when I saw that, I was like, okay, but there's the teachable moment there. Like good position, good recognition, awareness to get to the ball, but there's a teachable moment to, get your head around, for Christ's sake. But what did you see?
I think there was a lot more positive on that in terms of projecting forward than negative. So to kind of set the scene on it, it's important to understand the context and then the decision he made within that context. So it was a 3rd and 17 play. Okay. Bengals were already in field goal range, so you're not sitting there, trying to give up no yards to keep them out of the field goal opportunity. At that point, it's just don't allow a first down, right? So that you're holding them to 3 points instead of 7 or potentially 7.
Potentially 7. Yeah.
The coverage from what I saw on tape was a cover 3, where Tyke's job, he was lined up over the slot receiver. And his job is, if the slot receiver basically runs a vertical route, he's to try and push it to the inside, where you have a linebacker dropping to an intermediate hook zone, and then you've got the free safety patrolling the deep middle third of the field. And then his job is to get to a hook flat. So he's responsible for any receivers running a short pattern to the offense's left, or somebody running into the flat. And eventually a tight end does run to the flat. But Smith, being situationally aware, understanding, I don't care if I give up a 5-yard flat or a flat route that gets 5 yards, or an intermediate out that gives up 9 or 10, because the Bengals need 17 yards here.
Right.
And so shortly after passing off the slot receiver, he understands, okay, there's a tight end coming to the flat, but I don't really need to worry about him. My biggest worry is anybody moving vertically. And he's got T. Higgins, who was the outside receiver there, who ran a vertical and would end up being one-on-one with Josh Hayes. And knowing that, he just basically starts running like a madman for the front pylon on that side of the field, and ends up running basically through T. Higgins, which gets the DPI call. He didn't get his head around. He just basically runs through the wide receiver. It was absolutely a legitimate defensive pass interference call.
If it was a catchable ball.
I disagree there. I know a lot of people have said it was an uncatchable ball. I think part of the uncatchability was the fact that Higgins was on his back, because Tyke acted like a freight train. But going back to just the mental part of that, for a rookie to understand the situation and abandon his technical assignment because he knows that it's better for the play in that specific moment for him to give the vertical help and the athleticism to get there before the ball. All of that I saw as a huge positive for his development. You add in, he helped on 2 key third down stops where Bengals receivers had caught the ball short of the sticks, and he was able to come up and help make sound tackles and end drives. All of that's really, really positive. It wasn't a perfect night for Tyke, but again, I'm not looking for a perfect clean sheet. I'm looking for what can be projected forward that is positive and or negative. And there was way more of the positive for Tyke than the negative.
One of those big third downs, I believe, was on former Buccaneer Tanner Hudson, too.
It was. Yep.
Who had quite the few drops that could have went for first downs there as well. So, Bucs moved on from him for good reason. But you brought up the positives of Tyke Smith, the positives of Jalen McMillan. I want to bring up another big positive, because it's not something I think the Bucs have experienced in a little while, and that's the run game. I think when you look at the run game, obviously they finished last in the league the last 2 seasons. I think just watching that and kind of the way Cohen called the game and the way he set up, again, very vanilla. We're not getting like great things, but you can tell kind of by blocking structures and blocking scheme, the way they want to do things. And you saw a lot of what Dave Canales was talking about last year, moving guys horizontally, opening up cutback lanes for the running backs. Last year, it didn't work a lot for Dave, but in this game alone, you saw multiple instances of where the line's starting here, and then all of a sudden they're over here, and the cutback lane is there, and the back is moving up the field for, even if it's 4 or 5 yards, that's, if you get 4 or 5 yards, you're in third and manageable right away. And I think that was encouraging. When you watch the tape back and looked at, let's just kind of like leave out the linemen aside because I want to touch on some of those guys, but just the blocking scheme, the way Cohen called the run game, what was encouraging for you that, hey, maybe this will translate over to the regular season for more successful running game for the Bucs in 2024?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know if I can give a ton of credit to Cohen scheme wise, right? I think that the coaching has been really good because you saw from the front of specifically in run blocking, because I know a lot of fans are going to come after one or two linemen for not having a great pass protection game. But from the top of the depth chart, because all the starters played, right, on the offensive line.
Well, besides Tristan and Luke.
Besides the Tristan Wirfs and Luke.
No, you got it right. Tristan worth $1 million, several $1 million.
Tristan is worth a lot of money. Yes,
$41 million, I think. But Tristan worth.
But with the exception of the starting tackles, right? They played everybody from the top to the bottom of the roster, and almost all of those offensive linemen looked good in the run game, right? It wasn't until they got to like the fourth stringers, like Xavier Delgado, and I'm trying to remember Avery Jones, yeah, where you started to see, okay, they're struggling to get a little bit of a push here and things like that. But I mean, just to kind of rattle off the names who look good in the run game, as a testament to the coaching that they're getting this year. And all of them looking good, running, as you said, kind of a vanilla run scheme, a lot of inside zone, some duo, a little bit of mid zone, wide zone, outside zone. But you didn't see a lot of pulling or anything like that, like creativity, but just running these simple run schemes. Justin School looked good. Elijah Klein looked good. Graham Barton looked good. Cody Malk looked good. Ben Bredesen looked good. Luke Haggard looked fantastic. Brandon Walton, as a run blocker, had a phenomenal game, right? He was a big reason why they broke off a lot of their bigger runs for the night. So you have all of those players looking good. That's a testament to the coaching and the dedication to the run game this year, and it's taking hold with the players. So schematically, I think what Cohen looked best at was he was pairing a lot of his play action to actual run concepts that were being run. So that was good to see. I don't think we're really going to see what Liam Cohen can do until the live reps, the live games start happening. But it was encouraging to see the play actions married off of run concepts that they were using in the game. And then, like I said, I think the overall coaching, it's got to be complemented at this point because, again, you saw so many guys excelling in the run game as blockers.
Yeah, and new coaching staff on the offensive line too. It's not just Liam Cohen that kind of revamped this offensive coaching staff. They got Kevin Carberry, who was assistant with the Saints last year, but was before that was the offensive line coach for the Rams with Cohen under that kind of reign that they had there over in LA. And I think the way he's coaching these guys is a little bit different. You talk to the guys, and it's kind of an old school mentality with a new school feel as well. And I think that, getting a new voice in there. It's one of the things I asked Todd about. Getting a new voice in there certainly has helped some of the returning guys, but also some of the guys who are coming in for the first time. And you're seeing that in the run game, and even in practice, you can see it in some of the pass sets too. Something that came out of Jacksonville, Baker said yesterday, was he's been extremely impressed with the pass blocking. And while they're not stacked over there in Jacksonville, they do have some pretty good defenders in a Joshua Hines Allen, I guess we're calling him now. I like Josh Allen better for obvious reasons, but for that to take kind of self-scouting and look at what what maybe didn't work in the game, pass blocking now to imply it, and we'll see what it does. But I want to talk about the two rookies a little bit here, and then I got a question about Haggard. But with Graham Barton, there were times where he was just pushing guys out of the pile, and we saw, especially on that Bucky Irving touchdown run, where he passed his guy off to Cody. Cody picked him up, pancaked him. Then he climbed to the next level. Didn't take a linebacker. He took a safety and pushed him halfway to the end zone, opening up a big hole for Irving to work through. Irving had to churn through a couple tackles, but I mean that was impressive in itself. But then Elijah Klein, and Brian Baldinger, Baldy as he's known, did a breakdown on him and kind of check that out if you've seen it. But I don't think he's going to be in the competition now. Everyone I saw on Twitter kind of go crazy. Is he going to compete with the left guard? But for him, I think the building blocks of what could lead to him being in a competition next year at left guard, I think was really encouraging from what I saw from both of those guys, especially the power that they kind of had and the ability to move people in the run game. There were times where Klein climbed to the next level and kind of whiffed. There was nobody there, or he missed an assignment.
Yeah, we're going to targeting.
Linebacker targeting, right. But out of those guys and the reps you saw, obviously there's a lot to digest with Klein because he played so much. What was the biggest things for you that you took away and were encouraging for you?
Yeah, I think just kind of starting with Barton, you look to see if the things he excelled at in college translate to the pro game. The two biggest things that I think he had were three things. Overall athletic ability, just, he's an athlete at the position. His grip strength, and then his leg drive in the run game. And you saw all three of those on display. I want to say, as far as the athleticism, there was a play where he was climbing and the hip fluidity to basically turn behind him to pick up a linebacker that he wasn't running towards and still get a hat on him and keep him out of the play was extremely impressive. Right. The grip strength was there. You saw that and the leg drive just in how you described it. Just he was moving people, right? Like he was getting linebackers and linemen and displacing them vertically forward for him. So all of those things that were strengths on tape when he was in college, they're showing up at the pro level. That means the Bucs evaluation of him was pretty solid in terms of, this will play at the NFL level. Then you look at what are some of the things that, initially you think he might struggle at. Could he, have a faster learning curve than you expect, or could these be long-term issues? So the very first one is comfort level at the position, because Barton hadn't played center in 3-4 years. He played center his his freshman year at Duke. And then he switched over to left tackle for the rest of his collegiate career. And he looked super comfortable, right? And there are some big differences between playing on the interior and playing left tackle. Your pass sets are much shallower. Everything's happening a lot faster because you're in a much more enclosed environment. Your footwork has to be quicker just because you don't have as much room to work with to kind of glide out. There's a lot more steps in a smaller amount of area. And he looked super comfortable as a center, right? Very, very comfortable. And then the thing that the one thing that I kind of tagged him on in my own evaluation coming out of college was his leg drive was impressive moving forward, but how would that look as he had to, anchor against bigger, stronger linemen going up in the interior versus as a left tackle? Again, still powerful athletes, but guys who are more linear, who use speed to power rather than just brute strength. He anchored fine. I mean, he was holding up guys. I mean, I want to say he went up against Chris Jenkins, a rookie defensive tackle out of the University of Michigan, a strong dude, held his own. So, and then the last thing is, as a left tackle, you don't do a lot of double teams. As a center, it's, in pass pro and especially in the run game, you do a lot of double teams, and his timing was so great. Timing up with Bredesen, timing up with Klein, timing up with Malk. The way that they were all able to time those double teams, and then a lot of times in the run game, somebody moving up to the second level was something you just did not see last year with the Bucs interior offensive line. So super impressive. I think it could not have gone any better for Graham Barton, in my opinion. You said Klein as well.
Yeah.
With Klein, I think a lot to like for a 6th round rookie. I very much like you. I don't know if he's ready to start. If for no other reason, then the Bucs would be very reticent to put 3 guys on the interior of the line who have a combined regular season game count of 17, right? Which would be all Cody Mauk, right? That's 2 rookies lined up next to a second-year guy. I don't know if I think they want the veteran presence of a Ben Bredesen there to kind of help with the interior there. But Klein's strength looked real. Like you said, the targeting needs a little bit of work there. He could get to the second level, and I was actually pleasantly surprised with his get off. But once he got to the second level, it almost seems like his upper half and his lower half became a little detached from each other. He was kind of thinking through, I've got to get to this guy, then I've got to block this guy. Kind of disjointed his upper and lower half. You could tell he had a high football IQ. He knew what guys were going to try and do to him in terms of their pass rush plans. He just wasn't always ready physically to stop it. There were a couple times across his face, and he had left him on it, kind of grasping there. So a lot to like from a developmental standpoint. Don't think he's going to be ready for week 1 to be the starter. I don't think there's any chance he's going to usurp Ben Bredesen for the first half of the season. It maybe if he develops and Bredesen struggles late half of the season, you could see him come in. I just don't think that's a realistic expectation, and I don't think it's good for his development. But Bredesen's only on a 1-year contract. I really like the idea of if he continues this track and what he showed in Cincinnati, Elijah Klein could be your starting left guard in 2025. Yeah, that's a possibility. That's within the realm of plausible outcomes.
Yeah, especially, you're not going to just throw him in there probably, but you draft someone. It avoids you, if he continues to show this level, it avoids you having to spend another 2nd or 3rd round pick at the position, which they've done in the past. And now maybe you can look at like a 4th or 5th round pick to kind of compete with him. You can still go high if you wanted to, but if you feel that solid about his development, now you bring in someone or a veteran or something like that that's kind of journeyman, whatever. You're not having to invest higher resources in that position if you like what he does behind the scenes as he continues to progress. I'm going to do a couple just to finish up this game. A couple one-liners here, not one-liners, but a sentence or so on some of these guys. I'm going to throw at you.
All right.
And give me what one takeaway or something that you got from. So we'll
like
start.
One word or like
no, just like a quick little like a little blurb, like if you're a little blurb.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was word association. I had to narrow it down to 1 or 2 words. So a full sentence. I get a full sentence.
A full sentence.
All right, I will try not to use any of the words that send you going to Google or dictionary.com.
Yeah, that's all right. All right, first one, Bucky Irving.
I impressed me. Yeah. I question coming out of Oregon whether at his size he would be able to actually break tackles at the NFL level, and he broke like 3 tackles on like a total of 6 carries. It was pretty. He impressed me. I was not expecting it.
Sean Tucker.
He needs to improve his pass protection if he's got any real shot of getting on the field.
Rakim Jarrett. Sorry.
That was the catch, man. That was a dime and a great catch. Great ball tracking. I loved it. I'm a rock guy.
Devin Culp.
Love the blocking. I'll leave it at that. I loved the blocking.
Yeah, it's not something he's known for either, but he showed the capability to do it, especially out in space. Marcus Banks.
He knew where to be. Like the football IQ was impressive for me.
Stick it in the secondary in the safety room. Kayvon, big hit, Merriweather.
I think he secured his roster spot with that game.
We'll go over to another guy in the secondary, Tyke Funderburk.
I liked what I saw. Again, projection. It wasn't like a super awesome game. He didn't stand out during the live broadcast, but I really liked some of the nuance to what he was able to do. I like him in man more than zone, and that's harder to teach.
We're sticking in the secondary. Christian Isian
Looked good at free safety. Drove down on a dig route and almost had a pass breakup. Ended up with a good tackle. He looked really good. Versatile guy. He's got a long career out of him, not unlike Tavier Thomas.
Keenan Isaac.
It was a really good interception, but he got burned early on that play. It was the closing speed that helped him and a slightly underthrown ball. So I thought it was probably play of the night on defense.
Two more. Everyone's raving about this guy. FSU's Kalen DeLoach.
He didn't stand out. He definitely didn't outplay JJ Russell practice squad. Like, that's where I'm at with DeLoach. I know he's like you said, big name, lots of people. He's a practice squad guy for me right now.
And then a guy who made Jackson Carmine's life a living hell in the second quarter, Jose Ramirez.
Showed more bend than anybody else on the edge.
Over Marquise Watts?
From that game. Yeah.
Interesting.
Watts kind of wins with speed. Ramirez showed real bend to stay up through some holds and still get the corner. He looked really good.
And Carmine had like 2 holds on him that game.
So. Jackson Carman's not a really great football player.
That's right. So before we jump into a little bit about what we've heard from training camp from our esteemed colleagues, we've got River Wells from Bucs Game Day over there. Obviously, most of the Pewter Report crew's over there as well. I think Maddie's over there, Adam's over there. I'm not sure if Scott's over there or not, but they put out some good stuff. Obviously, breaking down what's been going on. Yeah, he is because he's on the podcast last night. But breaking down what's going on at Jags camp. So we'll talk about that for a second. But before we do that, I want to give a shout out to our amazing sponsor, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers cruise. Guys, this is so much fun on this cruise. Like, you need to get out there. Well, Buccaneers, on behalf of them, we'd like to invite you to join us aboard the 2025 Bucs cruise. It's amazing. It's going from this year, March 7th to 10th. It was a 4-day. They brought it down to 3-day. We'll be visiting Key West and Bimini, Bahamas. But it's so much fun. Everything's included in your package when you purchase it. We're talking food, we're talking drinks, we're talking Wi-Fi, we're talking interactions with players that you might normally not have. They just dropped 2 big names. Yaya Diaby, my guy's coming back for a second year. Graham Barton's going to be on there as well, just announced, alongside Trey Palmer, Kalijah Cansey, Brad Johnson. We'll also be getting there's another one. Jordan Whitehead's going to be on this cruise this year too. So it's so much fun, guys. It's an unforgettable vacation, whether you're going, by yourself, with your kids. It's a awesome time to be able to mingle and meet these players in a low-key setting where, you're not just in line for autographs and get a 10-second, all right, take a picture, sign an autograph and go. It's so much fun, and there's so many different things that they plan. It's like nonstop on top of the cruise that's got, nightly entertainment and things like that. Silent disco was wild. Never seen it before in my life.
I'm just thinking about it. Like, you have an opportunity to like grab the last lobster right ahead of Graham Barton, and how did he react, right?
So, I mean, it was absolutely amazing. They do like sail away party where you get to kind of mingle with the guys, trivia contest, bingo, cocktail parties that are really intimate. They break the group into 2 separate groups. So, it's not everyone at the same time. So you get this opportunity to kind of chill and hang out, talk stories, it's so much fun. The player panels that they do are so informative. They do games with the players. Last year, I walked in the auditorium last year late, and some guy handed me a card. He's like, keep this. I was like, okay. So they start doing like these player panels, and then all of a sudden we're playing heads up, like a heads up version. And I have a card, and they're like, come up. I'm like, am I supposed to be here? I'm like, so I got up there, me and Cade Otton were partners, and I nailed every question. So we had a tiebreaker round, and Cade lost it for me, lost to Luke Gedeke and his partner. But like some of the fun things you can do, they have an awesome volleyball water competition where they break the players on 2 teams, and then they go against the ship's crew. And last year, Team Dean won with Yaya Diaby was the MVP, but there's so much fun going on. They've got a great, if you're an old-fashioned guy, they've got an amazing old-fashioned make-your-own-fashion bar. It's great. They got a casino. I learned my lesson. Don't try to keep up with NFL players. If you're not in the same tax bracket, don't. I lost all my money playing craps with Jamel Dean, so don't do it. That's the kind of stuff you can do. You can just sit at the table and play, poker or blackjack or these things with some of your favorite players. It's really awesome. So don't miss your opportunity to celebrate with your team, create lasting memories that are going to for real last a lifetime with not just your favorite players, but fans too. And make, I know a lot of people who have formed lifelong friendships with Bucs fans from all over the country on this experience. So definitely check that out. So,
I thought I was going to get to go last year. I thought it was all, like settled, and then you opted to take your wife instead of me. And
I know. I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, you got to talk to Scott, because I think the whole PR crew is going. You got to kind of weasel your way in there.
We'll see.
Which will be fun because Pewter Report. Much love for those guys. Always, they'll be on the cruise as well. I think Big Nasty might be making an appearance too in full makeup, and that's like he's retired. So,
wow.
Yeah. If you're a Big Nasty fan, 2-time Hall of Fame, he'll be on there too. But I want to kind of get into what we've heard so far in practice from joint practices. And that's the secondaries look garbage. So, either that or Brian Thomas Jr. is the second coming of Randy Moss and Jerry Rice. And this guy is just an amazing football player, because we've heard so much about how he's been torching this defense. We know last season and even this past week, right, against the Bengals, 36 yards on the ground, 252 yards to the air. The Bucs have revamped their secondary, bringing in a guy like Tyke Smith and Jordan Whitehead back. They moved on from, Carlton Davis and brought in the much faster, speedier Zion McCollum, but they're still letting up a bunch of yards through the air. Does that worry you? This is a passing league. I think teams are going to get yards no matter what, but does that worry about you from everything you're hearing that, Trevor Lawrence is kind of having a field day on these Bucs DBs?
No, for a few reasons. Number one, most of those reports were from 7-on-7s. 7-on-7s means no pass rush.
Right.
It is designed for the offense to win. Okay.
Right.
Then you got the reports on the red zone drills. I think Evan Engram yesterday got a touchdown on 15 reps. Right. So they still look good in the red zone drills. And then most of the big plays that were being discussed from 11-on-11s were, it looked great, except it would have been a sack. Right. Even like the one on the Bucs side where everybody was oohing and eyeing on Trey Palmer, Todd Bowles threw cold water on it and said it would have been a great play if Kyle Trask hadn't been sacked on it. Right. So you take it all with a grain of salt. They play the rep through to get the experience of having the rep. But I think most of the things where you would have been worried were told, the reports are that it would have been a sack. So 7-on-7s, I don't put a ton of weight in those. If a secondary doesn't look great, Jordan Whitehead, I believe, is still not practicing, right? Correct. So you're missing part of your starting secondary there. The reports were that Zion McCollum did look bad on Wednesday, but then looked a lot better on Thursday. I'll wait till the game, and I'll evaluate the tape there where the sacks are real, the pressure is real. Let's see how they look there. So,
right. I kind of feel the same way, especially like, I don't even think we can take a ton away from preseason when the starting unit is out there as well, because I think there are several members of the starting unit that probably aren't, even if they play next week, because we've already been, starters much as last week. There might be another guy sprinkled here and there, but pretty much same as last week. We're not getting starters out there. Baker and the tackles aren't going to be out there. Mike and Chris aren't going to be out there on offense. Antoine's probably not going to be out there. Vita Vea, those guys. So like until week 1, when, you hope Yaya Diaby's back and Jordan Whitehead back, until you get that full look of the offense and the defense versus a team in a real meaningful game, I think it's okay to make observations. I think it's okay to kind of note things down and like put like, okay, little checks next to things and like, revisit. But until that happens, it's really hard to kind of get a read on how in 11, even in joint practice in 11-11s, how the Bucs look when they're not at their full arsenal, when they don't have everybody out there. You can
Yeah.
kind of get a little bit of concepts and things of what they're running and how they defend it. But I think without getting a full picture of Yaya Diaby and JTS are bringing the full pressure, and Vita's up the middle, and Kalijah Cansey, who didn't practice, is coming up the middle, and you've got Jordan Whitehead back here. You don't get a sense of the full picture of what the defense could be, because you're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4 pressure guys who aren't on the field.
Yeah, I think you bring up some really great points there. I think the most telling things right now are when the starters are in on the joint practices in 11-on-11. And from that standpoint, the secondary was fine. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. It was fine, right? Because the pressure was getting there. And
Right.
that's the Todd Bowles defense, right? He's going to bring exotic blitz looks. And when you're bringing in 5 or 6 defenders to get to the quarterback, they better get to the quarterback, because you only have 4 or 5 guys defending 4 or 5 guys, and there's going to be
Right.
open zones. So, so the 7-on-7 stuff doesn't, I think that's good from a evaluation of receivers in terms of their route running. How do they stem, creating separation, that type of stuff. I don't think it's a huge evaluator of the secondary for the opposing defense. The 11-11s, I think there wasn't anything of note for concern. And then again, to your point, in training camp, it depends on who's out there. I think a lot of guys who are supposed to contribute this year were out there against the Bengals, so you can make some projections and evaluations of those guys, like Tyke Smith, Chris Braswell, some of those
Are
guys.
they in the right place? Are they
Right.
executing their right
Yeah.
assignments? Are they, are they giving up the big thing because they got beat, or because miscommunication, or
Right.
you can take things from that, but without the full complement of everything, it's hard to kind of get, okay, is this Bucs team going to be one of the worst again in pass defense? I can't say that without seeing that.
I'm still very high on the Bucs secondary. I loved a lot of the moves they made. I think Zion's going to improve this year and become an above average starting corner to potentially a great corner. So I'm not worried about it, to be honest with you. And I actually think the depth is pretty solid.
Right. And then on the flip side, which kind of goes against what we were just talking about, Baker, Mike, Chris, chemistry so far has been absolutely electric in preseason, just when they're joint practices by themselves. But we've heard, and not that Jacksonville necessarily has a secondary that people are raving and ranting about. They have some.
Tyson Campbell's a really good corner.
I was gonna say they have some players, but they don't. No one's putting their secondary as a unit as one of the top in the league. But just the encouragement that we've heard so far from Mike about Mike and Chris, and then Chris moving back into the slot. How much do you think that's going to change the way that this offense moves compared to last year? We saw a glimpse of it. And how much do you think it's going to change the way that defenders have to cover it, that will open up things for other people?
Yeah, I think the big thing that it gives the opportunity for, because last year Chris was lined up opposite side as the outside receiver a lot, as the Z. I was just looking at this yesterday. You had games where Mike Evans had a great game and Chris Godwin was silent. And then you had games where Chris Godwin had a great game and Mike Evans was silent.
Right.
I kind of used a arbitrary cutoff for this, but I looked at how many games in the season did both of them register a yards per route run, which is an efficiency metric for receivers that's used quite a bit in the NFL, of at least 80% of their season average. So I want to say Mike averaged like 2.1 yards per route run for the year. So I was looking at how many, the games where he was at like at least 1.73 or something like that. And then Chris for the year, I think, was at like 1.8 yards per route run. So games where he was at like 1.4 or better. So any game where Mike was at like 1.7 and Chris was at 1.4 in the same game. And I even included the playoffs. And it was a total of 6 games. So it was very much either Mike had a great game or Chris had a great game. And I think by moving Chris Godwin back into the slot, what you're going to have is they're more closely aligned in the quarterback progression on any given play, so that if the initial look is Mike and he's not open, then the next look is Chris. And there's a better chance that one of the two of them is involved on a play-to-play base, snap-to-snap basis than last year. And I think any way that you can get both of them involved in the game plan more intertwined, it yields a better opportunity for the offense. I think it gives the offense a better opportunity to level up. So I think that has the biggest opportunity for the Bucs to improve the offense when you add in the chemistry and you add in the fact that Chris in the slot likely means that he's going to be closer to Mike in the progressions.
Right. Yeah. And I think when you get those two on the same field, it becomes such a hard area of the field to cover for defensive backs. And that opens up
for last year. It started happening more late in the year and good things came of it.
Right. And that opens up everything on the other side because you're usually going to have to shade a safety over there to pick up one of those guys. Moving on to this game, I want you to give me real quick 3 players on offense you're watching, you're looking forward to watch. 3 players on defense you're looking forward to watch. And kind of just a little, why so you're looking to watch those players. Go ahead.
Yeah. 3 on offense, Ben Bredesen, right?
Yep.
So I think a lot was made of Klein, Barton, Malk over this past week. Bredesen wasn't talked about a ton, myself included, but he looked solid. Offensive line is a weak link system. I think there's a good chance Ben Bredesen's probably the weak link. I'm not saying he's going to be bad, but out of everybody on the offensive line, I think he's getting the least amount of fanfare right now. So I really want to watch him and see how confident the Bucs should be about left guard. Devin Culp, given that Payne Durham is dealing with an injury right now, so the team may have to rely more on a 7th round rookie than they expected to. And can he beat out Queipo on the depth chart? Whether they keep 4 tight ends or they keep 3 and put 1 on the practice squad, can Devin Culp be the guy behind Payne Durham and Cade Otton that the team's willing to rely on?
I will say, I thought it was encouraging, before you get to your third, I thought it was encouraging for his development and for what the Bucs think that when you turned on the tape in the first quarter, especially even that first drive, it was Devin Culp out there.
Yep.
Over a guy like Queipo, who's been in the system with the team for like 3 years now, and then Queipo pretty much played the second half with a guy like David Wells. So,
it'd be interesting to see. Maybe they flip it this week, right?
Right. Yeah, that's
Yep. So I think that's a great point. And then the third one, Cameron Johnson, right? Assuming he plays, right? Yep. Because he didn't get to play in the first preseason game. I got to see him in I'm trying to remember if I don't think he was out for the second preseason or the second training camp practice that I got to. I got to see him for 1 training camp practice. I liked it. I'd love to see him in live game reps because as of right now, just based on who played last week, that 6th wide receiver spot I would give to Cody Thompson. Just based on he looked amazing as a blocker. And I know he's a good special teamer. So keep hearing great things about Cam Johnson. Would love to see it on tape and really get to, because I can't find Barton College all 22 to save my life. So I'd love to see him live reps against an NFL defense, right? So I think those are the 3 on offense. And then you want 3 on defense?
Yeah, I'll just say quickly, the 3 on offense I'm looking for is I want to see Sean Tucker again. I want to see if last week was a fluke or if it's something that he can sustain because he is the fastest running back on the roster. If his pass protection develops, I think it becomes an interesting kind of battle between Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker and who kind of can get some of those snaps in certain situations. I'm looking to see this wide receiver room too, as why you said. I think Ryan Miller impressed a lot, but Rakim Jarrett, I want to see if he can solidify that 5th spot.
There's 3. That's it. Nope. I knew you were going to fence it and try and give an entire positional unit as a player. Nope. You just said 3 names. You're done.
Rakim Jarrett, and I'm with you with Devin Culp. Shut your mouth.
4. I knew it, JC.
Ryan Miller impressed me, but I want to see Rakim Jarrett.
Fence sitter.
I love the fence. No, your turn. Defense.
Defense. All right. Chris Braswell did the improvements that Todd Bowles talked about in joint practices. Do they translate to the game? So there would be one. JJ Russell, because I'm a big JJ Russell guy. I want to see him get that fourth linebacker spot. He had a fantastic game against Cincinnati. Can he build upon that? And yeah, I'll stick with Tyke. Can he continue to show the high football IQ, clean up some of the mental errors, and just really solidify that nickel job?
Yeah, I'm with you on Chris Braswell.
3 players.
Yeah, you can mention other players when you're talking about one player. Chris Braswell's mine as well. I want to see Chris Braswell.
Okay.
You hear what kind of Bowles talked about, during, I'll just read the quote. Braswell's been excellent since he's come on with Joe and Yaya having been down. The experience and the leaps and bounds in which he gets better by the day. He's been one of the more pleasant surprises here since we've been up here in Jacksonville. He keeps getting better and better, and I love the things he's doing and love where he's at. So, that's some high praise from Todd. I want to see if he can translate that into a game. Again, he had some flashes, but I think there were some times he also just kind of looked like a rookie. I want to see if he can kind of string some things together.
He got bodied on a tight end chip, sent him over 2 gaps. It was not a pretty rep.
I want to stick on that edge rusher. I want to see Jose Ramirez. I want to see if he can kind of duplicate, because so much is depending on on the depth there, right? You've got limited guys there. Randy Gregory obviously is holding out. I'd love to see Randy Gregory. I'm just kidding. But he looked really good. Can he do that back to back? And maybe will his performance last week bump to get some earlier reps against some of the second string guys instead of some of the accountants and former future bankers and stuff like that, Amazon drivers. And then for the third one, I want to see Kalen DeLoach. I want to see him earlier in the game. I think JJ Russell is your fourth linebacker. I thought he's your fourth linebacker. I'm on the ilk that they carry 5 linebackers like they did last season. They didn't carry it initially, but then they had 5 linebackers. I think they also carry 6 edge rushers. So, given Marquise Watson, again, Jose Ramirez, can he make that case to be that 6th edge rusher for them to keep 6th? I think Kalen DeLoach kind of gives them the best outlook. He's been taking reps in practice with his first team, with Levante out, and with Levante in even. He's got speed and athleticism. He kind of looked up the snaps. He played the most snaps, tied with JJ Russell on special teams. That's something to keep an eye on. I would have said Tyreek Thunderberg, but I don't know if he'll play because he's got a boot on. But again, you look at it, he played, 9 special team snaps, which is tied for second most on defense. And when I'm looking at, these younger guys and these undrafted guys and these late round rookies, special teams is what I'm looking at too. Because who's on the core 4, right? If you've got a guy who, is only on 3 special teams units and he's a cornerback or, a wide receiver, like probably doesn't bode well for him making the team if he doesn't show out in the snaps he has. But if you show out in the snaps you have and you're playing special teams, I think that means a lot. So yeah, I'll go with DeLoach as my final. So Braswell, Ramirez, DeLoach. I want to see those guys. I want to see him get more opportunity because he didn't play until I think the 4th quarter. So let's see if he can, we know what JJ can do. Give him some snaps in the 1st or 2nd quarter and let's see what he can do.
I like it.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. We kind of did a little bit of a breakdown of the game that was, talked about the game that is, the week that is with the joint practices. Josh, I want to thank you as always for coming on and talking shop with me.
Actually, I have a question for you. I've been planning this and you didn't know it was coming.
Oh, great.
It's topical. You ready for this? And it's non-football, but I thought it'd be a good way to close out the show.
It's an ointment?
It is, yes. Actually, that may have just summed up the answer you're going to give me.
All right.
Recently, big Marvel movie came out, right?
Yes.
Deadpool, Wolverine.
Yes.
You and I are good friends. I think most people know that who watch this podcast. Who's Deadpool? Who's Wolverine between us?
Oh, I'm probably Deadpool.
You think so?
I think I'd be Deadpool, yeah.
I think you're topical.
I'd be a merc with a mouth, man. Come on, breaking the 4th wall sometimes. Yeah, I think I'm Deadpool. I think you're Wolverine.
All right.
But maybe not that version of Wolverine, because that Wolverine kind of, did everything. That version of
Well,
Wolverine.
if we're doing versions, you're the Deadpool that doesn't regenerate and is
Probably. But no, what's interesting, spoiler alert time, turn the podcast off if you haven't watched it, watched the movie yet. That version of Wolverine, it's funny because with the whole Jonathan Majors thing, that movie went through like a bunch of different rewrites because Kang was supposed to be like one of the big bads that they set up to in this movie.
right.
And because he was obviously fired from Marvel for whatever, not doing it. The whole premises of behind that character from the comics is, and why all the X-Men were dead, was because he ran from Kang because he was scared of the Kang variants. So that's why he's like drinking and everyone hates him because he, the rest of the team died while he ran and hid because he was scared of those Kang guys. So that's kind of was the backstory to him being like an alcoholic Wolverine and everything like that. And
So
like kind of just
saying I'm an alcoholic
Wolverine. Yes.
cat?
I said maybe you're not that version. Shut up.
Okay.
But, no, but that's a little insight if people didn't know that about that Wolverine and his backstory. You just kind of get this like what happened and kind of never really kind of got into it. But it was supposed to tie in with the new Kang movie, Kang the Conqueror, Destroyer, whatever it was.
Right.
But instead now we have some weird variant of Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man. They took the lazy way out. It still should be great.
He's already played Iron Man. He's going to play
Doctor Doom. Yeah, right. Speaking of Doctor Doom, Fortnite, new season, Doctor Doom. We'll get on that. If you guys aren't play that, if you guys play Fortnite, send me your gamer tags or whatnot. We'll get on there. I play with my son a lot. So yeah. But that's gonna do it. Now we're over an hour. Great question. Put us over an hour.
What I do.
Anyways, that's gonna do it for me. Josh, go ahead, promote yourself. What do you tell me your latest articles? What do you got breaking down there? And obviously where the people can find you.
I did a rookie breakdown from the Cincinnati Bengals game with some attached clips from Twitter of all 22. I recently did safety rankings in the NFC South as I close out the summer series that I do each year, ranking the positional groups. I have a note in the one I'm literally working on today. I'm doing the special teams rundown, ranking the NFC South, and I will have a note in there about how the Justin Simmons signing and the Matthew Judon trade affects some other rankings that I've done earlier in the summer. Spoiler alert, the Bucs are still number one in the safety rankings, although the gap is very, very, very small. So those are the big ones. And then can't wait for tomorrow night, Bucs Jags preseason game. We'll get to break down some more tape starting on Sunday.
Yeah. And if you guys aren't following him, go follow him now. He's almost at 2K. Actually, as I clicked on his profile on Twitter, he just lost a follower.
It's par for the course. Appreciate it. Thank you.
1935, and now he's at 1934. But go get him up to 2K. He should have way more than that. He's so insightful, whether it's cap, whether it's tape breakdown, whether it's digging into the numbers. He's a nerd. You guys should know that, like stat nerd, cap nerd. But if you want to nerd out with him or learn how to be a nerd, Josh is.
My eyesight is fine, actually. These are just to let everybody know I love math.
He loves math. So go check out all of his stuff. But that's going to do it for us here. As always, I'm your host, JC Allen, here at Pirate Parlay Podcast and the Sick Podcast Network. For Josh Queipo, for myself, for Tampa Bay Buccaneers Cruise, go buy your tickets. You guys aren't going to regret it. I swear to you, you'll love it. And I'd love to meet you guys there. That's going to do it for us here. We'll be back next week with another episode, hopefully on time on Wednesday, maybe with a guest. Who knows? We fly by the seat of our pants here until the season comes around. But that's going to do it. We'll be out of here. We're out of here now, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Peace out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Pirate Parlay on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.